The NAVS Hall of Fame began 33 years ago when the North American Vegetarian Society honored Freya and Jay Dinshaw for introducing veganism to the United States. They were pioneers, educating the world about veganism and dynamic harmlessness, and together they founded the American Vegan Society. Every year since then, NAVS has inducted someone new into the Hall of Fame, and they're people who we feel match that vegan activism set forth by the Dinshaws. We're about to run through the names and professions of all the members of our Hall of Fame, and as we do, I hope you'll notice just how varied they are in their types of activism. I also hope that this will serve as a reminder about just how powerful we can be when we infuse our passion with action. And so we begin. Jay and Freya Dinshaw, founders of the American Vegan Society. Vegan homesteaders, Helen and Scott Nearing. Renowned Dr. Michael Clapper. I think he's here. Let's give him a cheer. He was the third person to be inducted, and this was like about over 30 years ago that we started this. Author and NAVS board member, George Eisman. Yes. Paul Obis, the founder of Vegetarian Times. And peace activist, Mahatma Gandhi. Alex Hershaft, founder of the Farm Animal Reform Movement. And Muriel Gold, NAVS board member. Patricia Lambert, NAVS board member. And Howard Lyman, one of the greatest vegan activists of all time, as far as I'm concerned. Charles Stoller and Deborah Wasserman, founders of the Vegetarian Resource Group, now known as the Vegan Resource Group. And Brian and Sharon Graff, founders of the NAVS. That's us, guys. Richard Schwartz, founder of the Jewish Vegetarians of North America. And renowned researcher, Dr. T. Colin Campbell. Renowned dietitian, Brenda Davis. And Joe Stepanek, vegan cookbook pioneer. Joe Connolly and Colleen Holland, founders of Veg News. Renowned Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn from the Cleveland Clinic. Renowned Dr. Neil Barnard, the founder of PCRM, who's also here. Jenny Stein and James Levesque, founders of Tribe of Heart Film Company. And Ray Sikora, co-founder of Plant Beast Daily. Where the heck is she? Apparently she's in Africa this year. That's why she's not here. She better get her butt back here next year, though, right? I'm going to make sure she's here. Nutrition and fitness expert activist John Pierre. Renowned doctor Hans Deal. Chef Miyoko Shinner, farm sanctuary operator and groundbreaking entrepreneur. And here tonight, or in the cafeteria anyway, the founder of Vegan Fusion Institute and our Summerfest chef, Chef Mark Reinfeld. And renowned Chef AJ. And last year's inductee, Michael Greger. Just in case you're new to the Summerfest, just reminder, we keep the name of the current year's recipient a secret until the very last minute, and that moment is just a few moments away. Here's some clues about who this person is. This person is described as being energetic, inspiring, and brilliant, graceful, humble, and gentle, persistent and passionate, and not afraid to mince words. This person is considered and said to be one of the nicest people you will ever meet and an amazing leader. This man is very respected in his field. And I don't just mean in vegan circles, I mean in the whole country and beyond. And here's one more clue. People in his profession wear a white coat. But when tonight's inductee wears one, he usually has something unusual underneath it, and that is tennis clothes. I think he knows who he is right now. Introducing the 2023 recipient of the NAVS Hall of Fame, Dr. Kim Williams. Woo! All right. So, Dr. Williams, I don't know if you've ever seen one of our Hall of Fame presentations before, but get comfortable because we're going to do kind of like a sort of like a this is your life kind of thing, and then we're going to have you come up on the stage at the end for us to give you your award. And hopefully we're going to get a lot of this right, if not all. A lot of the presentation comes from interviews that we have watched and listened with you to put it all together, to come up with a "You're an amazing person" presentation, so just sit back and enjoy. Kim Williams was born in 1954 on the south side of Chicago. And he has said many times in interviews, his family was poor. Food insecurity was a part of life. When he was 5, Kim's stepdad died from an intracranial hemorrhage. Now, this was a blow to the family, but the medical aspect of what happened sparked something in Kim. This event would become his first interest in cardiovascular phenomena. As a kid, Kim didn't always get what he needed, and when he was 11, that thing that he needed but didn't get was a winter coat. That year, he walked back and forth to school for months without a coat, and then he landed in the hospital with pneumonia. Now, it gets pretty interesting here. Kim had been hospitalized for pneumonia at least once before. So even though he was just a kid, he had actually memorized the timing and dosage of the penicillin that he was supposed to be getting. And he noticed that during this hospitalization, his medicine wasn't coming on time, and sometimes it didn't come at all. So here he was at South Chicago Hospital, sharing a room with other sick kids, and he observed that they weren't getting their meds on time either. So he took the initiative to start going to the nurse's station. Remember, he was 11 years old. He started going to the nurse's station on his own at the proper times to request his meds in the right dosages. And then he started doing that for at least one of the other kids in the room as well. This was 1965. Kim was 11. But he had an awakening. He saw the lack of quality in his community health care, and he knew that it wasn't right. So right then and there, in his hospital bed, he decided that someday he would become a doctor and fix that system so that all people could get proper care, even if they had limited resources. Years later, Kim's high school guidance counselor would actually discourage him from applying to a really good school that was local to him, saying, "Don't bother applying because you'll never get in coming from an inner city school." But before I get to that, I want to say something about Kim's mom. Kim's mom was a secretary, and she believed that the key to a better life was education. So when Kim was in middle school, she enrolled in junior college. Now, Kim has described his family from going from poor to destitute when she went back to school. But there was also something very positive that happened during her very first course, which happened to be bio. She came home from class one day announcing that she had just learned something in school. She had just learned that cholesterol causes heart disease and that red meat causes colon cancer, and she decided on the spot that the whole family should become vegetarian, and they did. Kim attended Calumet High School. He was captain of the chess team, and in 1971 he became the first inner-city Chicago high school chess team captain to make it to the State of Illinois Chess Championship tournament. And then, one day, his high school announced that they were starting a tennis team. Now, Kim didn't really care anything about tennis, but chess season had ended and his chess friends were all going out for tennis, so he decided to go out for it too. As he has described, on the first day of tennis, the coach showed him how to hit a backhand and how to hit a forehand, and he practiced. And he got really good and ended up playing number 3 singles, which means he was one of the best players on the team. One day, while playing high school tennis, a kid from a different team told Kim and his teammates about a program that he had found out about called The Program. The kid explained that this program sought out African American kids to help them academically and athletically, and that it was run by the University of Chicago. This was the school that Kim wanted to go to, the one that his guidance counselor had told him to not bother applying to. So Kim checked out the program. So there he was on the court, as he describes it, with about 60 other inner city kids. And at the end of the first day, he went up to the coach and told him that he really wanted to go to this school, but that his high school guidance counselor said, don't bother applying. Well, soon after that conversation, the coach told Kim to go to a certain building at a certain time to talk to some guy on a certain day. And when the day came, he showed up to talk to the guy, still in his tennis clothes, of course. And the meeting turned out to be a college entrance interview. Kim applied, and he got in. Something interesting, turns out that that tennis coach was also the varsity coach for the university and a minority recruiter for the admissions department. Kim played under that coach throughout college. And then he became a pro tennis player. And then he became a pro coach and has worked with nationally recognized tennis players. Just one final thing about tennis and Kim's undergraduate career. He paid almost all of his tuition by teaching tennis. He would literally run back and forth from classes to the court, not even changing out of his tennis clothes, and when he graduated in 1975, he was almost completely debt-free. Kim attended the University of Chicago Pritzker School of Medicine, planning for an inner-city pediatrics practice. But his medical school mentors encouraged him to take a different route, a route they noticed that he just seemed destined for. As Kim has described it, when it came to cardiology, every single aspect was as if it was part of him. The science, the physiology, it was like he had done it all before. So he switched to cardiology. But he almost didn't make it. It was the summer of 1976, and Kim was still in medical school. He was playing in the NCAA championships, and if he won, he would qualify for the US Open, which would mean missing an entire year of medical school, which would lead to a pretty big unknown. Well, he hurt his back during the second set. He kept playing, but his back was tweaked, and it didn't take long for his opponent to figure out exactly where to hit the ball in order to exploit the injury. Kim finished the set, but his opponent won, and so Kim returned to medical school and never looked back. And for the record, he recovered easily, from what I understand, from that injury, and never had another one like that. So, seems kind of like fate, right? Dr. Williams graduated medical school in 1975 and went on to do his internship and residency at Emory University. Then he returned to the University of Chicago to earn overlapping fellowships in cardiology, nuclear medicine, and clinical pharmacology. Caring for patients with limited financial means has always been of utmost importance to Dr. Williams. So he chose to go to work on the south side of Chicago at his alma mater, the University of Chicago's Pritzker School of Medicine. He rose from professor of medicine and professor of radiology to director of nuclear cardiology. And he remained there for almost 30 years until the hospital changed its policy regarding patient advocacy. Suddenly, Dr. Williams was unable to care for people who had a hard time paying. So after 3 decades, he left that job in protest. He moved on to the Wayne State University School of Medicine in Detroit, where he accepted the position of Dorothy Susan Timmis Endowed Professor and Chair of the Division of Cardiology. Here, among many other things, he started the Urban Cardiology Initiative, which provided community health screenings to people living in inner-city Detroit and elementary school education on cardiovascular health and physician education on racial disparities in health care. In 2013, he joined the Rush University Medical Center in Chicago as the James B. Herrick Professor and Chief of the Division of Cardiology. Here, he started the Helping Everyone Assess Risk, HEART, program to screen churches and community groups for heart disease and stroke. Today, he teaches medicine at the University of Louisville, where he's also chair of the Department of Medicine. Okay, so are you kind of getting a sense of his leadership here? All right, because this is really just like the tip of the iceberg, folks. All right, now we're going to turn to his vegan activism. Actually, I hit that slide just one slide too soon. We'll just leave it there for now. We're going to turn to his vegan activism right away, but first, I want to mention just a few other just little bullet points of other positions that he's held before we get into that other stuff. Starting with President of the American Society of Nuclear Cardiology. This is in addition to all those other things. President of the American College of Cardiology, where he is now trustee and delegate to the American Medical Association. He is chairman of the board, or has been chairman of the board of the Association of Black Cardiologists, and also chairman of the Coalition of Cardiovascular Organizations. These are just normal bullet points on the resume here. And to just add a few more bullets, he's also a fellow of the Association of Black Cardiologists and the American Heart Association Cardiovascular Radiology Council and the American College of Chest Physicians and the American College of Cardiology and the American Society of Nuclear Cardiology, for which he is also a founding member. All right, so now let's talk about how the vegan diet plays into all of this. Now, remember how his mom got the whole family to go vegetarian back when he was in 8th grade? Well, he ate that way until 1981, when he got married and started eating chicken and fish as part of a quote-unquote marital negotiation, as he puts it. And at that point, his diet became what most Americans consider the healthiest. You know, no red meat, just fish and skinless chicken, no fried foods. You know what I'm saying. Dr. Williams was just talking about that, right? Well, in 2003, a routine test showed that his LDLs had risen to 170. And this was kind of a shock to him because he'd been playing tennis every single day and not eating red meat and eating chicken without the skin and only eating fish and avoiding fried foods, et cetera, et cetera. Now, most people at that point would just say, there's nothing I can do about it. I already eat healthy, right? Well, not Dr. Williams, because he wanted to be the very best role model for his patients. And so he dove deep into the research for answers. And he came across an article in the Journal of the American Medical Association by David Jenkins that talked about the vegan diet as a means to lower cholesterol. And this piqued his interest because there was a patient of his that had experienced remarkable improvement on a plant-based diet. So he dug even deeper into the research and then came to a decision. As he puts it, He grabbed the diet instead of the pill, and 6 weeks later, his bad cholesterol had fallen from 170 to 90. That was 20 years ago, and he's been vegan ever since. So, Dr. Williams points out a massive irony, and that is that heart disease is the #1 cause of death in the United States, but it's largely preventable and commonly preventable. So a largely preventable disease kills more people in our country than any other cause. And here's something even more ironic that he points out, and he mentioned this in his talk. Heart disease is also the #1 killer of cardiologists. So the people who are most expert in this largely preventable disease die of this disease more than any other cause. Dr. Williams' life mission is to remove heart disease from its perch as the #1 killer of Americans. And he's got a two-pronged approach. Reverse it using a plant-based diet and healthy lifestyle, and prevent it using a plant-based diet and healthy lifestyle. He frequently uses a cartoon like this in his presentations, explaining that medical advances have led to amazing mops and brooms so that cardiologists can really mop up the mess when people have when people have problems. But he wants cardiologists to learn how to turn off the faucet. And that's why getting nutrition research into the hands of physicians and nurses has become a hallmark of his work. Has anyone not seen this quote? So if you take a look at it, if you go online and look up, cardiology meme or whatever, you'll see this everywhere. I've seen it all over the place. Anyway, in researching Dr. Williams for this presentation, I learned that the words "I like to joke that" are almost always omitted from what he actually said. And this is important because apparently some cardiologists did feel just a little bit insulted when they first heard these words. And this leads me to something else I learned about the quote, which is that Dr. Williams never meant to bash cardiologists. Rather, his goal was to express dismay that the most important studies about the power of a plant-based diet to prevent and reverse heart disease weren't making it into the journals that cardiologists read. And that's more of a dig, if you would call it that, at the researchers, not the cardiologists. Well, he's changing that. Dr. Williams is the inaugural editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention, a new journal created to document the science of nutrition and lifestyle to prevent, suspend, and reverse disease. But there's a lot more. He is also a member of the International Advisory Council for Doctors for Nutrition, an Australia-based organization dedicated to bringing evidence-based information and education on optimal human nutrition to healthcare practitioners, institutions, and the general public. By the way, the very first healthcare symposium put on by that international council, it focused on the plant-based diet as the front line of preventative medicine. And guess who was asked to give the keynote presentation? All the way over here from the United States, yes, that was Dr. Williams. And that conference took place in Australia, so that means that he was chosen among doctors all over the world. Dr. Williams is also a researcher himself, having authored or co-authored 41 original articles published in peer-reviewed research journals such as the American Journal of Medicine, the American Journal of Preventative Cardiology, the American Heart Journal Plus, the Journal of Nuclear Cardiology, and Cardiovascular Pathology. He's written 122 review articles or position statements or editorials, 15 monographs or textbook chapters, and 82 abstracts, And he's been a reviewer for the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, the Journal of Nuclear Cardiology, and the Journal of Nuclear Medicine. And he's been guest editor or editorial board member for the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, Cardiology Today, and U.S. Cardiology. Now, this is all very, very big picture stuff, huge picture stuff, reaching the masses by getting the research to the doctors. But this is just the beginning, because Dr. Williams also works directly with his fellow cardiologists, educating them about the power of a plant-based diet and inspiring to eat that way themselves so that they ultimately prescribe it to their patients. Interestingly, he says it's the younger doctors and the ones still in medical school that tend to adopt the research the fastest. They say, okay, that's it, I'm done, I'm not eating any animal products any longer. But the senior faculty, they're the ones that are a little slower to change, which he says is unfortunate since they're the ones that probably need it the most. Now, ironically, a lot of these older doctors do refer their patients to Dr. Williams. They ask him to help their patients adopt a plant-based diet. How fascinating. They acknowledge that even they don't do it personally, they owe it to their patients to make the referrals because science shows that it's the right thing to do. So, publishing research, doing research, educating doctors. But wait, there's more. Because Dr. Williams also works with patients directly, starting with people who are in the hospital recovering from a heart attack. As the critical care unit attending cardiologist at the University of Louisville Hospital, he introduces himself at the bedside with these people, and he talks with them in kind of a lighthearted way, and he has this set of open-ended, very light questions that he asks them. And this very kind of like light conversation helps lead these patients to come to the acknowledgement that diet is what led them there to begin with, and that a plant-based diet can keep it from happening again. Now again, the conversation is kind of brief and light. These are people who are just coming out of surgery. And he usually ends it with a bit of humor, saying something like, now that we've gone through this and I'm giving you the plant-based diet, you can follow it or you can ignore me. If you follow it, I'll be happy. If you ignore it, the hospital and I will make money. So it's up to you, okay? Now this is just planting the seed for people recovering from surgery. But then there are all those other patients he works with who are ready to commit to change. And for them, he uses what he calls the 3 T's. Spending time with the patient, giving people tools, and working together as a team, whether it's plant-based dietitians or nurses or online platforms such as plantbaseddocs.org or the Esselstyn Diet or Ann Esselstyn's 12-Point Guide or the Stoplight Diet by cardiologists Danielle Berlardo and Rob Ostfeld, and Cooking for Your Heart and Soul by the Association of Black Cardiologists. In many interviews, Dr. Williams speaks highly of the doctor who created this, so I'd like to give that doctor a shout out. And that's Dr. Baxter Montgomery from the Montgomery Wellness Center in Houston. Dr. Williams refers to this man as a great cardiologist who has changed many people's lives. Dr. Williams appeared in the documentaries Eating You Alive and What the Health and The Game Changers. But as far as media is concerned, it's his preface in the book Healthy at Last that I'd like to focus on. This is a book about plant-based eating by Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City. Dr. Williams has said that when he was growing up, most of his family and friends ate what we know as soul food: barbecue ribs, pickled pig's feet, fried chicken, foods that are deeply rooted in African American culture, created by ingenious enslaved black people who had to come up with creative ways to survive on the animal scraps that white people didn't want. These foods are culturally rich, but as Dr. Williams explains in this book, they're harmful, and they've contributed to so many African American people developing heart disease and diabetes and other chronic diseases. Actually, he points out that all animal products are harmful, but that these foods in particular have taken a toll on African American people. Dr. Williams writes in his foreword that in the US, black people have a 21% higher rate of cardiovascular death compared to white people due to these traditional foods and because of poor access to health care, poorer access to healthy foods, lower levels of higher education and health literacy, and the implicit bias of some physicians and medical centers. Now, remember, from the very beginning of his career, Dr. Williams' goal has been to improve inner city health. And yes, it stemmed from his personal experience as a kid, but it's also because he knows that the ravages of systematic hypertension affect underserved communities at a much higher rate than the rest of the country. He says we need to bring medical care to the people who need it the most, and that's what his programming has done for decades. For example, here's what he does on the weekends. You know, he's a very busy man, right? Because of all those things I've been telling you about. Here's what he does on the weekends. He and his fiancée, Rose Baldridge, she's the University of Louisville outreach coordinator, together on the weekends, they go to churches and barbershops and every community event they can find in the West End of Louisville, setting up free screenings for critical health markers, providing on-the-spot results, and they make appointments for follow-up with appropriate practitioners. But these screenings, they're not just about numbers. They also include health counseling, real dialogue, to help people overcome poor dietary choices by leading them to understand that they can make a difference and that these diseases are terrible, but they're pretty much voluntary. These outreach events are garnering significant interest in the community. Black physicians and black ministers and local and national organizations are getting involved. More and more volunteers are coming on board, including medical assistants, medical students, and doctors. And apparently, like, Dr. Williams, this is not written down in my thing, so this is a little improv, which I rarely do, but from what I learned is that these other doctors and organizations are all like duplicating what you're doing, but they all want you to come and speak at them. So you're still stretched really thin as it's expanding. Recently, Dr. Williams applied for and received a $1.2 million grant from the Humana Foundation to expand this work. The money will be used to purchase testing supplies, and the University of Louisville Health is donating tables, chairs, and other equipment. People who know Dr. Williams say that he will take every opportunity to provide community education. And it's more than just the weekends, folks. Here's some examples. At his recent company picnic, a day for relaxation, right? He set up an outreach table. And for the upcoming Kentucky State Fair, he and Rose will be there for all 10 days. And when he does church sermons, which apparently he is regularly invited to do, he integrates nutrition and health information into his spiritual messages. But here's the gig. He doesn't just do this work for altruistic reasons. He says he does it because it's patriotic, and this is why. Medicare pays about $85,000 a year for every patient on dialysis, and African Americans tend to be on dialysis 3 to 4 times longer than other people. So targeting African Americans and other underserved populations with a plant-based diet could save an astounding amount of taxpayer money, which could then be redirected to inner-city education and infrastructure. So this book not only addresses the medical problem, but it also talks about the cultural issue, the historical issue, the big picture issue about not just living longer, but living better. And it ushers in delicious, healthful alternatives to problematic foods to not only change the lives of individuals, but also entire communities and the country at large. There's not enough time to mention all of Dr. Williams' amazing accomplishments. We're not going to be able to do all that today. So we're going to wind down with just a few more bullet points. He's coached pro tennis and taught tennis to the Chicago Park District. He's been named one of America's top doctors for the past 10 years, and the U.S. Professional Tennis Association recently honored him for 35 years of service to the organization. As president of the American College of Cardiology, he set up a nutrition subcommittee on its prevention council and worked intently with the USDA to get the cholesterol limit down as far as possible, something that required fighting industry lobbyists who just look out for their own financial interests. And to this day, he still fights industry lobbyists who use what he calls pseudoscience to promote their foods as healthy in the USDA guidelines and elsewhere. He's on a national task force to improve disparities in who does cardiology, and he initiates programming that increases the number of mentors and role models for underrepresented people who are studying cardiology and for younger people who might potentially study cardiology. And again, this is about helping individuals, but it's also about changing the face of health in this country and the well-being of communities. Because he knows that to make all of that happen, we need more doctors that look like people from underrepresented populations. To conclude, Dr. Williams is a lifelong athlete, an esteemed clinician, and a respected leader. Juliana Hever, the nationally recognized dietitian who is here in the audience, says that Dr. Williams consistently works to inspire everyone around him to become vegan everywhere he goes, all the time. He is passionate and he is determined to do the most good in life and to have the biggest impact possible. It is his life's mission. But she also says that despite all that, he prioritizes his health and his wellness, and he's got a beautiful, generous, compassionate heart of gold. Indeed, for those closest to him, Dr. Williams is perhaps simply known as a devoted father and partner. And by the way, remember how his mom started junior college when Dr. Williams was in middle school? Well, she ended up earning a doctorate in chiropractic, and 3 of Dr. Williams' own children became doctors, and his 4th child became a Marine, evidence that his mom's inspiration for education and focus and dedication to life improvement has spanned the generations. Dr. Williams, you are an inspiration to us all. Please come on up so we can give you this award. Dr. Williams, on behalf of the board of NAVS, we are giving you this plaque. The world is a better place because you are in it. And I'm going to put it right here, or you can do whatever you want with it, and then you can just say a few words.
I'm just going to hold on to it.
Okay.
Very few words because I'm speechless. I'm not sure how you got all of that information about my background, but I can tell you that it sounds like I did a lot of stuff, but I'm really thinking with your help that I have a lot more to do. And that is, we're not there yet. We still have loads of issues in our healthcare system that we can fix if we go out with dedication and determination. We can do this. And so I really appreciate the award and the accolades for what bit I've accomplished so far, but I feel like the job isn't done, and I'm hoping that you'll all join me in efforts to really change their system for the better. We can do this, but we can only do it together. Together we are stronger. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.